Hello, everybody, and welcome to Opportunities Annual Education Finance Webinar. And thank you so much for taking time to join us. I'm Atul, Tandon, CEO of the organization. And joining me today is a group of people, some of my colleagues and a friend and a donor, Jill Moller, who's based here in the US, and she and her husband have been long-term donors to Opportunity and to our education finance program, and to McCusker, our global head of education finance, and then two very special people from Africa who are on our staff and lead our program, and we'll talk a bit about them as well. As we gather here, I go back to the last time that we had this webinar, and we were right in the middle of COVID. We were, deep in the middle of COVID. We were also deep in the middle of our 50th year, celebrating Opportunities, a journey of 50 years of helping people build livelihoods, get food on the table, and send the children to school. And we recognize many of you who are with us today for what you have done to change the state of the education for not one or two, but literally millions of children around the world. Education Finance has a program for Opportunities now in its 11th year. And as we look back to these years, and I'd say the past 10 years as we now enter the 11th year, 10 million children accessing quality education in school, children who were not in school before. Over 100 financial partners who we work with around the world in over 30 countries who are providing financial resources through loans and other financial services to thousands of schools who are partnering with us around the world, educating these children. So it is, it has been a community effort at the base of which, at the root of which, are the people on this webinar, our donors and our supporters. It is your will, it is your desire to change the lives of some of the poorest children on the planet that powers this program, combined with, of course, and I'm proud to say, humble to say, the passion of our staff, and then going out and working not by ourselves alone, which has been Opportunities' real, if you will, secret sauce is never to go alone, but to go with partners, to work with local partners in countries around the world, specifically to do lending to schools, to help schools turn themselves around. And importantly, as Andrew will speak about in the program, is recognize that good educators are not born, they are made. And so the investment of a very significant part of your resources in improving the quality of education in these schools. And we'll talk more about that. That's become even more important. In the last 2 years, there was a recent World Bank report, and I know we'll provide you a link for, that just came out just about, I think about 2 or 3 weeks back, about the global state of education. And that report was not a celebration, sadly. It was a lamentation. Going into the pandemic, close to about somewhere between 45 to 47% of children who are leaving middle school were unable to read a simple text paragraph. 2 years later, 1.6 billion children out of school around the world. In some cases for over 2 years. In fact, the schools in Philippines are still not fully open. The schools in Uganda just opened earlier this year. Coming out of the pandemic, that number in the World Bank's estimation, that percentage in a set of developing countries around the world, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa and in my country of origin, in India, has now climbed to 80%, 80%. 80% of the world's school children leaving middle school are not able to read a simple paragraph of text. Forget about ideas and concepts, right? So, and the impact of the pandemic on these children is deeply profound. I have to say that today the world is not ready to even face up to the task. So this webinar truly, for us, as we were thinking about what to bring to you and what to talk about, the reports that were coming and our own experience working with these schools really focused our attention on this simple fact, is that we need to do all we can to help rapidly improve the quality of education for the children who are in school today, in our schools today. Get more of them in school where they aren't. Over 260 million children around the world who should be in school and not in school because there aren't enough local resources to open schools for them. As you look at the World Bank numbers, largely the children around the world are not being educated well. This is a world that doesn't track resources. It is a world in which those resources are unevenly distributed. Our job, your job, my job, and I'm so thrilled that that is indeed our job, is to make those resources more available to the children at the right time, at the right place, in the right schools. And that's what this webinar is about. So with that, I'm going to turn over to my colleague and to a person who's become a close friend. And I will say to this group is that I take both, presentation tips from Andrew McCusker, as well as dressing tips from Andrew McCusker. And today morning, he texted me to say, Atul, remember to have a haircut. So, I owe my haircut to Andrew as well. So with that, Andrew, over to you. Take it away.
Thanks, Atul. You've put the pressure on now. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Delighted to see so many from our community making the time for this webinar today. Before we get started, just a quick note on how today will work. In a few minutes, you'll hear from some of my colleagues as they share some of the exciting advancements in our work on the financing and education quality work that Atul alluded to. And in the back end of the webinar, we'll open up to question and answers. Please feel free to submit any questions that you have as they arise into the chat box of the Zoom at any point through the program, and we'll address them towards the end of the session. But before I hand over to my colleagues, what I thought I would do is give you a brief overview of the Education Finance Program for those of you who are new to Opportunity, to help understand our unique model and the impact that it has on our clients. And for anyone who's already familiar with the work, I do just invite you to share in the chat what you like about the various components of our program. Joining me today, I have a couple of our colleagues. So I have Violet, our Head Education Specialist in the Education Quality Program, and Lucy, our Opportunity International Education Finance Technical Assistance Advisor. Violet and Lucy work in the various components of our program designed to unlock both of the barriers to accessing quality of education, being, as Atul mentioned, the lack of access, i.e. kids that should be in the classroom but are not, and those and the lack of quality, i.e. those that are sitting in the classroom but don't learn. I think the statistics that Atul mentioned on the lack of learning quality are pretty profound, and as Atul mentioned, have got a lot worse. On the access side, we work with financial institution partners in countries that have a lot of kids out of school or in school and not learning. And we provide those financial institutions with both technical assistance and at times capital support to increase their investment into underfunded education systems. Once those financial institution partners have lent to our portfolio of schools, those schools are invited to join our education quality program, which effectively provides capacity support to school leaders and teachers designed to improve the quality of education. And so to talk more about the various components of that program, my colleagues, Violet on the education quality side and Lucy from the financing side will provide a bit of an update on some of the exciting innovations that they're working on. But before we turn to these experts, I've invited my friend and a wonderful ambassador for the Education Finance Program, Jill Moller, to share with you why she is drawn to our model and our work.
Thank you, Andrew. And greetings to everyone. My husband, Tom, and I have been involved in OI and our mission work in Kenya for 15 years. Our current OI focus is EduFinance in Nairobi. and how it might be replicated in a rural area like the one we serve in Western Kenya. On our last trip to Kenya in 2019, Andrew and Lillian arranged for us to spend the day with Anne and Violet, the founding education specialists in Nairobi, who you see here. And I would like to take you on a short virtual insight trip. We were so impressed by the background, knowledge, and passion of both Anne and Violet. The students had been dismissed for Christmas break, so we couldn't see a school in action, but instead they took us to a cluster meeting of school proprietors. Welcome to the Kawangware slum. It was market day, so the streets were very busy. It's a marginalized neighborhood that is typical of OI clients. Most residents are unemployed or self-employed and living on less than $2 a day. 65% of this marginalized population is children. This is the alleyway to the school where we were visiting. The neighborhood has no public water, waste management, or sewers. This is a primary school proprietor, Jackie, who hosted the cluster meeting and welcomed us. Note the tall wall for safety and proud advertising. One of the school loans that I heard about at the cluster meeting was a school requesting funding to build a fence between their playground and an open sewer ditch. As you will hear, education finance has two components. The first is school improvement microfinance loans are offered through local institutions to improve the infrastructure of the school, like the fence. And the other part is the EduQuality training teachers and shares best practices using the Pathways to Excellence guide, professional development, and cluster meetings. This is the schoolyard with two examples of microfinance projects. The vehicle allows schools to include baby class and preschool children who are too small to safely walk the distance to a primary school. The hand washing station to the right was so clever and improves the hygiene of the students and sets an example for them at home. Here you see the cluster meeting for 6 proprietors. Jackie is hosting and Anne is facilitating. The proprietors are reviewing the goals of their past year and planning for the next using the Pathways to Education model. They are trained by the OI education specialists when the schools are on recess, and then the proprietors meet in cluster groups for ongoing support. Over Christmas recess, they were going to a training session to learn the financial literacy of running a school like a business. This is a typical classroom for a school that's just entering the program. As you can see, there are limited materials, but teachers learn creative ways to make learning more hands-on and engaging using inexpensive local resources. When I first read the training materials for Pathways to Education, they seemed well developed, but totally overwhelming to me, a non-educator. But I have to say, the school proprietors were so well trained by the education specialists that they had a good grasp of their school assessment, needs, and goals. Therefore, the program is indeed making an impact on the quality of education they offer. My husband, Tom, and I are planning to go back to Nairobi in November to see how the EduFinance program has grown over the past 3 years. We encourage you to consider joining the OI Insight trip to Kenya to learn more about the EduFinance program and the impact it has on marginalized school children. Now let me turn it over to Violet to hear the latest on how the education program has evolved since my last visit. Over to you, Violet.
Thank you so much for your wonderful support to our program, Jill. And hello, everyone. My name is Violet Akinyi. I am the head education specialist for East Africa. I'm coming live to you from Kenya, where I'm based. And just talk a little bit about the EduQuality program. So the program is part of the broader education program that we have in Art Opportunity International. EduQuality is focused on the professional development of school leaders and teachers in the low-cost private sector. And we focus on building competencies in school management, instructional leadership, and effective teaching and learning. So this year has been a big year for us. This is because last year we were focused on making sure all the schools could reopen after school closures due to COVID-19. That led us to develop a blending learning model that digitized our trainings to help reach more teachers. Now we are back, and we are focusing now on our core efforts to improve quality of education in the classroom, including a pilot that we call the Teacher Mentorship Program. Before maybe I tell you about our Teacher Mentorship Program, I want to share a bit about the challenges facing teachers in low-income communities. So the teachers we work with in our schools often have a wide range of educational backgrounds, and many have had limited access to formalized teacher trainings or ongoing professional developments. So in some school, you'll find that school leaders are employing teachers who have never received formal trainings. And this is because employing a professional teacher is usually too expensive. And as we all know about quality education, when you talk about quality education, we know that it starts with the teachers as the best instructors. Ongoing professional development of teachers is key to ensure teachers are equipped with current, effective teaching and learning techniques, which enhances quality teaching and learning, which in turn will increase learning outcomes in our schools. So at Opportunity EduQuality, we see the need for better teachers and are addressing it through our teacher mentor model. As you can see in the picture, there's an education specialist who is facilitating a teacher mentor session. We have now selected teacher mentors and school leaders from each school who come together in what we call cluster meetings that take place within the schools. So the teacher mentor program helps people currently in our program become mentors for the other teachers in their school. Education specialists like myself, who are in charge of a cluster, work with the school leaders and teacher mentors to become trainers within their own schools. They go through professional development sessions to learn how to lead their peers. These include, there is the guidance on lesson observation and feedback, teaching and learning techniques that have proven to be effective, and ongoing coaching methods. Yeah, so you can see a photo of our teachers who are being trained. So after the teacher mentors have been trained, they usually go back to their schools and train their teachers. So apart from them providing trainings, they also do coaching and classroom observations and provide ongoing feedback to the teachers they mentor. So one thing I have loved about this program is that we are building on the solutions we have with the needs that we see. As mentioned earlier, we had converted to a blended learning model, which is partially digital and partially in person. So to reach more people in the most effective ways, we have made this program blended as well. Our teacher mentors are equipped with the tablets, which have a special application where all the learning takes place. The application is called the chalkboard and is as you can see on the screen. Yeah, so the digital content enhances our in-person sessions by utilizing live quizzes that check for understanding and increase participants' engagement. So during our sessions, when our teacher mentors have attended our trainings and the trainings are on, so the teacher mentors have the interactive digital guides they can follow as we train them. The teacher mentors will then go back to their schools and use their digital facilitators guides to deliver the same in-service training to their peer teachers, as well as use the digital classroom observation templates to regularly observe classes and provide coaching and feedback to their peer teachers. So far, this has been so interesting, and we are seeing so much improvement in the instructions. As I had mentioned that for us to talk about quality education, we must focus on the teacher as the best instructors. Thank you so much for listening to me. I will now welcome our EduFinance Technical Assistant Advisor, Lucy Kabalisa, to share more on how we are scaling our work. Welcome, Lucy.
Thank you very much, Violet. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, our dear listeners. My name is Lucy Kabalisa, a Technical Assistance Advisor with Opportunity International Education Finance, responsible for Zambia. Greetings from Lusaka, Zambia. It's a great honor to be with you today. In my role in the education program, I build and nurture a portfolio of financial institution partners whom I support to develop appropriate products and services for our private schools. As part of our work, we assess gaps in the different financial institutions, train their staff once they've agreed to be partners, and help them get the program running with tools for processes like cash flow analysis for schools, performance target setting, school client pipeline building, performance tracking, and marketing. We do monitor their performance on a monthly basis and have remedial reviews, feedback, action planning to aid us achieve the desired set education finance goals. Our mission as education finance is to get more children into better quality schools, and to do this, financial management and handling has to be done appropriately. And from the research we've also conducted in various markets, we've discovered and noted that the area of financing affordable private schools is significantly underserved. And this is majorly due to financial institutions lacking data on the available business opportunities that lie in private schools, the mindset financial institutions have towards the private schools. They are usually regarded as high risk due to generalized known weaknesses such as lack of proper financial records, poor banking history, poor management, high risk of closure like what happened due to COVID-19, seasonal cash flows, and lack of traditional acceptable collateral to pledge to the banks, among others. Similarly, the private school owners also have a poor mindset towards lending financial institutions. Again, because of perceptions of things like high interest rates, stringent requirements, all due to lack of information that they also have as a result of a phobia towards borrowing. Majority have fear of losing their properties that they've pledged in case of default. All this makes our work more important because we come to reconcile these two parties. The mindset of the financial institution staff as well as the mindset of the school proprietors who are the potential customers. However, despite the challenges shared, we managed to address these challenges, and as a result, we've so far onboarded 110 financial institution partners in 29 countries across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Altogether have invested $504 million in the private education sector as at 30th June this year. And 10 million children have benefited, and we are very grateful for the support that you give us from your donations. As earlier mentioned, in a bid to address the change of mindset for both the financial institutions and the school proprietors, as well as addressing the knowledge gap, I'm very excited to share with you two things that we've done in the past year. First, we've introduced the School Leadership Academy, which is a workshop program that works with low, medium-cost private schools that need sensitization, preparation for financing, and we use the same forum to link them to the financial institutions that are ready to serve them. So we have both the owners and the financial institutions in one hall discussing, sharing, and all this kind of helps us demystify some of the barriers that affect both sides from transacting together. We introduce to them these different various needs that they can be financed with for purposes of improving the learning environment. We make them aware of the loan requirements that financial institutions do require. We take them through the financial records that are critical for them to maintain the best management financial practices, as well as what they would look out for to qualify for financing. And we usually have the financial institution representatives in the same workshop who also kind of supplement what we share. And after that, we are able to build a solid pipeline for financial institutions. So with this, it gives them motivation to really focus on having solutions and supporting our private schools. In a bid to also address the financing gaps as well, capital requirements, because the financial institutions need funds also to lend to these schools. We've gone ahead to also source for partners in that space, and we are happy to have onboarded Oketch, who has committed to $100 million of capital for schools in low-income communities in the next 3 years. And with that, we've so far onboarded 14 financial institutions, and 3 of them are at an advanced stage of getting credit from Oketch. So we believe with them coming on board as the biggest finance providers, coupled with our long outstanding proven education model, the impact will be felt on the education arena. We are very excited also to have got funding from USAID that has helped us onboard countries that were originally not on the portfolio, like Zambia, where I belong, Tanzania, DRC, among other countries. And because of that, we've been able to onboard over 30 financial institutions that are willing to lend and work with our private schools. And a third of them already are offering the loan products to schools. We are very grateful for your support, our cherished donors, and over to you, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy, Violet, and Jill. As Atul, Jill, Lucy, and Violet have shared with you, the Education Finance Program has evolved, it's grown, and it's now getting many more children into better schools. I think as Atul mentioned, since 2012, the financial institutions that we work with across Africa, Asia, and Latin America have now lent to more than 37,000 schools in high-need communities, and about 10 million kids have gone to those schools. Through the history of the program, we've been able to define what works in the education finance loan products, and as Violet mentioned, work on improving the quality of schools. But there are still many more schools that can use this support. Because we estimate that with enough financial resources and a big enough team, our model could in time reach about 580,000 schools across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And about 155 million children currently go to those schools. It sounds pretty daunting, but given the model that we have by using a network of local financial institution partners, it allows us to scale quickly. As some of you may be aware, right now we're going through the process of putting the finishing touches on our 3-year strategic plan for the program. Over the next 3 years, we plan to do 4 things. Firstly, to accelerate investment into more and more schools and increasingly target schools lower down on the fee curve, targeting or serving lower income populations. Secondly, as Violet mentioned, to improve school quality, to improve management practices, teaching practices, and ultimately improve learning outcomes for students in more schools. Thirdly, is to claim knowledge leadership in education finance, to disseminate learnings or to publish learnings and disseminate them across the network. And fourthly, is to improve the efficiency of our programs so that we can reach more and more children. The thing that I most love about the markets that we work in is that the children that go to the schools that we work in have pretty ambitious dreams. And as you've heard from Violet and Lucy, our team is pretty committed to their vision of making their dreams a reality. I think Atul mentioned a few big milestones that we've reached in the education finance program since inception over the last couple of months. And I just wanted to pause and thank everyone on this call and in this community that's been part of the evolution of the education finance program. Because of you, we've just celebrated 10 million children reached through the program. And we're asking you to continue to stand with us, given that we have the ability to reach many more. Because of the powerful model that's been created, every dollar that's raised for the education finance program through our funders results in about $18 loaned to schools, families, and the communities so they can access education. For every child that we're able to reach, costs us about $4 in grant funding, providing access to finance and quality improvements. We're asking you to consider longer-term gifts and immediate funding that we need to take the education finance program and education quality improvements to reach more and more children in Nigeria, in Guatemala, and the Dominican Republic. And so if you're moved or inspired by what you've heard today from Jill, Atul, Lucy, or Violet, please feel free to make a gift. You can do this by clicking on the link that we've shared in the chat box, or feel free to reach out to a staff member on the chat. Now, as I mentioned, we have a lot of time for some questions. I've seen some pop in the chat. And so please, a reminder that if there's anything that you would like to ask, please feel free to pop it in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can as possible. I've seen a couple of questions pop up in the chat box, and so maybe what we'll do is address some of those now. Violet, if I might ask you first to talk a little bit about the level of literacy that's assumed in the education quality program and the teacher training materials that we're providing, both through chalkboard, but also in person.
Thank you so much, Andrew. So I begin with the materials that we give. So as I had mentioned earlier, we have the chalkboard app, and the chalkboard app has the materials that our teachers can read through even when they are now doing their own in-person learning. So these are equipped with the training materials, that is their own digital training guide, which the teacher mentors will use to train other teachers. And they also have some of the quizzes. Some of the quizzes that they do before the training, and some of the quizzes that they'll take with them after they training them. And also in the Chalkboard app, they also have their own digital observation tool that they use to observe teachers and give feedback. And on the issue of the training, the kind of training that we're giving to our teachers, I mentioned earlier that we are looking at the effective teaching and learning methods that are current, that will enable our teachers to be effective and offer quality teaching and learning, that will increase the learning outcomes at school. The literacy level that we are focusing on is the beginners level, where we are teaching them how to teach phonics. That is the beginners level, and it is where also we have realized that most of our teachers are having challenges, because when our learners are not able to be taught the phonics well, so that they are able to read for comprehension, which is key, then they usually face challenges later as they go to other classes. So we are doing the basic phonics for them, so that they are able to learn how to read, and also just not to read, but read to comprehend. Yeah, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Violet. I can see that there are a number of questions about the Education Quality Program coming into the chat box. So Violet, while you have the stage, given that you and your team work every day in schools, there's a question about what is one remarkable thing that's come out of the school development planning process and the pathways to excellence?
Thank you so much for that question. One thing I'll say is when you see our school leaders now focusing on properly managing their schools, that is in terms of looking around and identifying themselves areas that they feel they need to grow. So they know that every year, when they look at pathways to excellence, they're able to assess themselves and ask themselves, what am I to focus on this year? So they are now looking at how best they can manage their schools to ensure they are at a level that can give quality education. And this one just, when you look at pathways to excellence, it's touching on different areas that enable our schools to reach the level of excellence. So when you go to our schools, even when you enter, you just feel there is a bit of change in management, in teaching and learning, and in even how our school leaders are managing their staff, and even at and also engaging parents. And another thing I would say is that now as they plan, you'll find that now the finance bits come in handy, because they're not just taking loans and use, but they take loans where they know the plan that they have and how they want to spend their money, something that was not there. So when you go to a school, you'll find that they are ready and they will tell you my plan for this year, something that they were not talking about. And this is what I have achieved. Our school leaders are now talking about the achievements at the end of year in terms of school improvement and what they would like to achieve in the next year. So you'll find them, it is a matter of them thinking of this year, what have I achieved? What am I to achieve next year? Why didn't I achieve? And also you find them now working together. I've mentioned about our cluster model, where we bring schools that are within the close proximity, and they work together. So you'll see that they have become like a team. So they support each other. So not only that they want to see each and every school leader want to grow on his or her own, but they want to move together. They want to grow together as a cluster. Yeah, thank you for that.
That's fun. Thank you so much, Violet. We had a question about the efficiency of the program, asking what is the cost of the program's delivery to reach every incremental child? And so as we go through the business planning process at the moment, currently the program, so both providing financing and the education quality support, costs us around $4 per student. And so what that does is it provides the financing support through Lucy, her team, and the financial institutions providing school fee loans to the schools that the schools can use to build new classrooms, build washrooms, build dormitories, purchase assets like school buses and IT equipment. as well as providing loans to families so that they can pay for school fees when families have lumpy or seasonal household income to effectively stop kids from dropping in and out of school. Additionally, in that $4, we provide training to school leaders, as well as the teacher training through the teacher mentor model, as Violet has mentioned. We had a question about the reach of the education quality program. Is it in all 30 countries? And so right now, the financing products, so the loans to schools and loans to parents for school fees, are in about 30 countries across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Of those 30 countries, there are about 8 countries that have a live education quality program operating. We would love to take that program to more and more schools in more and more countries, but currently have a funding constraint on us. And so would be very happy to any support to grow the reach of that program over the next few years. We had a question about the correlation between school quality improving and school fees. Effectively, what we see in the program is that as quality improves, we haven't yet seen an increase in real fees charged by the schools. The reason for that is that in many of the markets that we work in, there is effectively a constraint on the amount of affordability for households to be able to pay for school fees. And so while there might be a case for parents paying more, it's effectively budget constraints that do lack. What we do know, though, is that school proprietors are incentivized to take out loans and to improving quality, in that it results in a step up in enrollment. And so what we see is that school revenues improve and school free cash flow improves, but we haven't yet got evidence that that fees increase. It's possible that over time that does happen, but we're not there yet. There was a question too about school cash flows and about how schools are able to match the cash that they receive versus the cash outflows. Violet and Lucy, I know that you both work with school proprietors from time to time with the various aspects of your component of your programs. Violet, would you like to perhaps kick off and talk a little bit about some of the challenges that school proprietors face in terms of managing the revenue that they collect and the expenses that they need to pay?
Thank you so much, Andrew, for that. So the challenges that our school leaders face in terms of their revenue, one is that they don't collect 100% revenue. This is because to where the type of schools you're working with, the low cost of private schools. So you'll find that this is not 100% collection of school fees. And so even as they budget, you find that they usually have a deficit. And most of our school leaders will tell you that at times they just allow the learners to learn for free because it is not easy for their parents to pay school fees. So that is one of the challenge. And also, as I mentioned earlier, that some of them are also not, they're really, some of them are small schools and they're not able maybe to access loans before we joined. And so we are always working with them to look at how best they can join together and access loans for microfinances so that they can develop their schools. And as I've also mentioned that the collection of fee has been a challenge, but we have trying with them, like they start incorporating parents so that they can see how best they can have a fee plan payment for the parents, because that one might be easy for them. Remember, the parents also are in the low communities, and so low income communities where even them getting money to pay for the school fees is also not easy. Yeah. So Andrew, that is the challenge we face.
Thanks, Violet. And Lucy, I know that you had spent some time working with schools in the north of Zambia late last year. Did you notice any differences in the economics of those schools, and how did the ETAF program support them?
Thank you very much. As Violet mentioned, collection of 100% is usually the challenge. The first month, the peak month of the term, they can collect about 60%, then about 20% in the second month, and then some 10% even spills to the following term. As most of the low-cost schools balance it, where parents don't have cash, they bring in kind, they pay in kind. Some can bring firewood, which the school may need to use in the kitchen. Others bring food, say beans, maize, and they pay in kind. So that's how some low-cost schools trying to manage the collections and as alongside supporting the children. And then in terms of our program, we've sensitized even in the workshops, even in what EduQuality does, is to unlock the minds of the proprietors, to utilize maybe the land that they have, they go into school gardens, try to set up other sources of income than completely depend on only school fee collection. So that if they can feed children with food from their gardens, they are subsidizing on the cost. And then, of course, these school gardens help the children as well to learn skills so they can till their own food and actually eat it. And that helps manage even maintain the fees low for most parents to afford and keep these children. And on the finance bit, we come in now to bridge that gap. That's why we are trying to onboard financial institutions that can actually come in with solutions to help the schools have their cash collection 100% in the first month of the term, with products like school fee loans, where we are now helping the parents to top up for them, and then they pay in small installments over a period of 3 to 4 months as they pay to the bank. But when we've helped the school collect all their cash flow to enable them operate normally and give the quality education that we desire for the children to have. So we've developed products for schools that can help them put amenities that can improve even the quality of children that are attracted to that school. So if we find a school has improved learning environment, it will attracting parents who are able to pay 100%. And once those pay, the balances can cover those other children from vulnerable homes who can't pay at once, but they would be able to meet all the operating costs using the ABLE group. So it's a hybrid we are trying to create with supporting these schools to have the right structures, supporting parents to pay school fees and pay direct to the school account. All that helps the schools manage despite the different children they have that come from different income groups. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy. I've seen some follow-up questions about the costs of implementing the program. And so the $4 program cost provides both for access to finance for schools and parents, as well as the education quality program. That's one-off for each incremental child that's benefited through the program. And so it's through that model of having a network of financial institutions that we work with who lend to many schools each that we're able to reach so many children. And personally, the reason that I choose to work in this program is that we take finite resources and are able to run a pretty scaled program to increase both access and quality to education. There was a question about how we work with not-for-profit schools who can't repay the loans. And so not-for-profit schools can be recipients of loans and the education quality program. The condition for them to be able to access credit is the ability to generate revenue. Now, as we move further down the fee curve, that becomes more difficult for financial institutions and schools to do that in a financially sustainable manner. But I think as we spoke about a little bit earlier, there's about 1.3 million schools that we could target across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, of which around 600,000 are potentially bankable. And so there is so much wide open space in this market, and we're effectively constrained by two things. Firstly, the availability of grant funding to grow our team and our programs reach. And secondly, to hire more people fast enough. I'm just scrolling through the questions. It looks like we may have got to most of them. And so thank you for everyone for chiming in with questions. If there is any that we can follow up with, please do let me know. It looks like we're heading up against time. So I just want to thank you for your thoughtful questions. And I'm very grateful again for all of your support in this community that we've built. I'd like to welcome back Atul to close our time together today.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you to the team, and especially thank you to Jill for joining us. Very, very grateful. I have to acknowledge there's a very special person, and I'm not going to embarrass him by telling you how long I've known Chris Crane, but Chris is the illustrious ex-CEO of Opportunity International, and at least in my opinion, directly, Chris is literally the founder of Education Finance. It was something that came to him, and he drove that, with a deep passion. And Chris, I can't tell you how thankful and delighted I am to see you here today. It's a real privilege to be in the company of our founders. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Atul, and congratulations on the tremendous growth that has occurred in EduFinance and Opportunity International.
Well, credit to you and to the team. So our job to show up and shepherd along, but thank you. It truly, what a gift. So thank you. And Chris, of course, continues to be in this sector with Edify, a very, very prominent nonprofit that he founded that continues to work in the low-cost private school space. So we are honored to be sojourners and partners. So thank you. And thanks. I know we answered most of the questions, but if we didn't, let me just take a couple of moments. I mean, we currently are, of course, working in over 30 countries, 100 partners. As Andrew mentioned, somewhere in the region of 15 to 16,000 schools. Left to himself in the next 3 years, I know he would like to see that double. That number, and we are with them in that regard. Obviously, that's going to take philanthropic support, and more than that, your contributions of your time, your talents, your testimonies, and I know many of you are so actively involved in this program. So we're very thankful for that. It is, I should mention, I've been in the business world for a long time. It is quite rare to come across an opportunity like Education Finance. Very focused, very directed. We know who our customers are, the students. We know where to reach them is in the schools and how to get them into schools. Recognizing that providing access to schools by building schools, setting up schools, financing was not enough to take on the additional task of improving quality. And further, and I think you might have picked up on this already, is that we are doing that at two levels within the schools. One is at the administrative level. How do you get the school to run better, the administrators? Because most of our entrepreneurs are from the communities, from the villages, from the small areas, and don't come with much training beforehand, business training. So how do you get them to run the school better? Secondly is educators. How do you equip them differently and better to be able to teach these students, educate these students? I was at just about, I think 6 weeks back at a learning seminar that we were having in just outside Kampala, in a suburb in a small town outside Kampala, actually in Entebbe. where there was a group of school teachers who had gathered to go through their first initiation into into our learning program, the ones that our staff just spoke about. And the head of the school there who was hosting it, and there would have been, I think, about somewhere between 40 to 50 educators from different schools in the community who had come, and they were being introduced to this tablet-based app, to a tablet-based chalkboard app, and going through the lessons. And the head of school at the host school stood up as he was closing, and he said, this is important what we're doing here. And he spoke about his own experience. He said, my school, the school that we was literally sitting in, my school used to be a school known for its discipline. And by that, they meant physical punishment of students. He said, now I can barely keep parents and students away. And the reason is, going through Opportunities program, I recognized that there were different ways to discipline students in classrooms versus corporal punishment. And when we started doing that, it is the students who went back and told their friends about what a different school this was. I can't keep up with the number of students and parents who want to send their kids to school here. To me, beyond, if you will, teaching and equipping, the change in thinking and culture that the engagement that Opportunities program provide, that you provide, I think truly sets up a future generation for success. And if that's the gift that we can give to these students, a good education, a good mind, a good experience when they're being educated, to the teachers, a fulfilled experience of teaching in the class, to the school proprietors, that they can turn the lights on today, tomorrow, and day after, I honestly think we'll change the world, which we are and will continue to do. So as we close the webinar today, and as you consider, where your time and your treasures are spent, I do hope and pray that you'll consider Opportunities Education Finance Program. And frankly, if you can find a better investment for $4, send it to me. I'll invest alongside you. So with that, warm greetings and thanks again. And we look forward to seeing you around Opportunities events, but more than that, to meeting you in person as I travel around the country, and hopefully some of you on our Insight trips as well. Thank you and God bless.